Hello, hello, how are you? Sean Ferrick here for Trek Culture, and I am absolutely smothering with the flu this week, so I apologise in advance if my voice sounds a bit bunged up, because basically I think I'm going to sound a bit like Phoebe Buffay when she had the flu and she was trying to sing in Friends. Before we get into the ups and downs this week, obviously, thank you very much everyone who likes, shares and subscribes, really appreciate it. You know, if you've seen the episode, you know full well what the Latinum Up is going to be, and the reason I'm saying this here is because it's actually left me feeling a certain type of way. I feel quite emotional going into this episode. If you've seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the episode, I'm going to say this. Stop watching this Ups and Downs right now. Go and watch Lower Decks. Go and watch the episode. Do not watch this until you've seen the episode, okay? In the opening scene of Paradoxus, we have, a Valdor, or at least a refit Valdor class warbird is attacking the Cerritos, and straight away, up Kzinti on the bridge. You know it, I know it, that gets an up. It looks like the Cerritos is about to be defeated. Romulans have boarded it, they've stolen the Chronogami, which is a hilarious name. They've beamed back aboard the warbird, and they're about to get out of there, except another up. The USS Wayfarer flies in, which shows us our really first proper hero shots of a Sovereign class ship since Star Trek Nemesis. Oh, it's gorgeous seeing this ship back again. Obviously we had it in Star Trek Picard, but we didn't get these pan-bys, these kind of close-ups, so this is beautiful. This is where, of course, it's revealed that Brad Boimler is playing the part of Bucephalus Decker in this scene. And we're like, wait a minute, that's not his name. Of course, this is the holodeck. This is a sequel to the episode Crisis Point, which came in the first season. That introduced us to the Vindictiverse, as Mariner calls it. This is Boimler's reimagined sequel to that. Now, there's actually something I noticed on the bridge. Did you see that on the Master Systems display, this is obviously a Sovereign class ship, but it looks like the foreshot of a Luna class ship on the Master Systems display. That's neither up nor down. It's just something that stood out to me. So I wonder if maybe, did the Wayfarer start life as a Luna class ship? I don't actually know. We get introduced to our different characters. Of course, we have Bucephalus Decker, and of course, Commander Doodle, which is Mariner, which is hilarious. We go from here to the basically refit of the Regular One space station, and along the way, couple of things happens. One, Boimler is called off by Ransom, so he goes off for a bit. There is a discussion, the beautiful TMP style credits style, but they talk about all these different ideas for stories, one of which being an alternate timeline that runs concurrently with our own, with people playing younger versions of ourselves. Scientifically, that would be a bit of a reach. Oh, I'm getting a call from Canon Watch right now.
Hello, Sean, and thank you very much. Now, as is evidenced yet again, the Kelvin universe does exist, just in a slightly side universe. We had, of course, Kovach in Star Trek Discovery speaks about the Romulan mining ship that went back and started the Kelvin universe. And even though we have a joke about it in Lower Decks, we know that at some point in history, it bled through into the psyches of these people. So even though they may joke and even though they may laugh, the Kelvin universe, once again, is confirmed, and Kovach is, of course, vindicated almost 1,000 years before he's born. Back to you, Sean.
Thank you very much, Sean. And I 100% agree, and also, that's an up. When Boimler returns to the holodeck, he's quite obviously a changed man. He explains it away as just being, there's a change in shift assignments. That's all he says, but it looks like there's something more. When the mission is beginning to, kind of gear up, they're being given their advice from Helen Gibson aboard this Regular One space station. Oh, by the way, obviously, Cetacean Observations is going to be so jam-packed this week, so stick around for that. There's a lot to get to. I can't highlight them all here because we'll never get through the ups and downs otherwise. Away they go to Tatashur 9. On this planet, there's calls to different episodes. We go, let Manuki guide you, the koala's out for us all. Love it, absolutely love it. And again, you have Boimler who just doesn't seem to care. To the fact where, they walk up and they see these grav cycles, which of course we saw before in the Kelvin Universe films. Tendy's so excited, Rutherford's so excited, and the holographic versions of the rest of the crew are so excited, and Boimler couldn't give less of a crap. He goes off to speak to one of the extras in the holodeck while the rest shoot off away on the anti-grav bikes. He goes up and speaks to the one who's in search of Kidia, and Mariner's like, what is going on? For the first half of this episode, I have to say this, Mariner gets it down, because this is season 1 Mariner. And what frustrates me about that is that clearly she's being used as a plot device in this episode to set up, to rile Boimler up. Some of the worst moments of Mariner are when she's not being sarky, she's being mean. And that's what she is in this episode. She's being mean. And I feel it's annoying because that's not season 3 Mariner. She has grown. For me, I had to highlight that as a down because it was quite frustrating watching her this week for the first half of the episode. Nowhere near as bad as Peanut Hamper last week. This episode leaps and bounds beyond from that. The same theory behind it is like, that's frustrating. Why would you have a character who has grown so much be so frustrating? Now, what I will say, however, is I'm going to go straight into an up, which is as she's backing out of the holodeck, she steps over the black letterbox, which of course movies have, but TV series don't tend to have. That one tickled me nicely. On the side mission, you've got Tendi, Rutherford, and the rest. They're chasing these Romulans on this anti-grav thing. Tendi pulls ahead, and then, she lets her bike crash into it while she backflips over it, which I think is a reference to another cinematic universe. And then, the Romulans, they scoot off, they follow them, and we're down at this aquatic research center, and I don't make the rules. Monster Maroons get an up. You knew that, I knew that, let's just carry on. So this entire side mission has completely taken Tendi and Rutherford away from the action of Boimler and Mariner. Generally, in the vein of some of the best storylines, yes, this does tend to work. However, interestingly, in the Boimler-Mariner storyline, Mariner is really frustrating me because of the reasons I discussed. And over here, from this point of view, we have a different take on this side of the storyline. This one is Tendi is taking this so seriously, and Rutherford, and he's not wrong, but Rutherford is enjoying it because it's his time off in the holodeck and he's having a bit of fun. He stops to get a Subway along the way, like it's hilarious. And Tendi's getting so obviously really riled up by this, and she's not happy. And it's funny because you know that there isn't a mean bone in his body. There might be something mean in his head implant. Seeing the two of them clash like this and Tendi's increasing frustration without us really knowing why at this point is actually quite funny to watch. Outside the holodeck, Mariner, who gets called to Ransom's office for her evaluation, that's still going on this season, speaks to her about, how did Boimler seem? She said, it's fine. And Ransom goes, oh, I assumed he would have told you. And she goes, what are you talking about? Well, William, his transporter clone, died this morning over on the Titan. A Neurazine gas leak flooded his quarters and he died in his sleep. The whole tone of the episode changes from this point on. You have Mariner straight away as like, oh no. And you see it, from this point on, Mariner, in my point of view, is back to being season 3 Mariner. And she's straight away, she goes, oh, I've given him such a hard time. Ransom, he goes on to speak about how important, having your best friends are. And he then highlights, this brilliant picture where he's got Honus the barman and he's got Nurse Westlake, who of course, Chris Westlake, don't think that we don't love your contribution, and of course, Matt the Whale. Tellingly, no Stevens. At least that's the worst thing that's going to happen to Stevens in this episode. Now, Tendi and Rutherford, they've gone from this Wrath of Khan kind of search for Spock setting, and they've arrived in Sydney, in Australia, as opposed to Sydney, Ireland. In 1982, they get accosted by punks. Of course, this whole thing is a send-up with the voyage home, but instead of being the one with the whales, it's the one with the octopus. And this really tickled me. And Rutherford's there, he's stealing the punk's clothes and everything, and Tendi's getting even more wound up, because he's there trying to steal the punk's pants as well. It gets a little bit weird, actually. Rutherford, do you really need to strip the poor guy? Yeah, Tendi's getting really wound up at this point. Mariner, however, has gone back to try and find Boimler. She goes back into the program and she finds herself on a freighter that is kind of familiar. I'll get to that one in citation observations. Now, she's like, oh my god, where's Boimler? Where's Boimler? Boimler's in the brig. Because of course he is. Now, with this, he's sitting there and he's got bags down to his knees, and he's not happy. And she goes in, she said, I know what happened, and I'm so sorry for your loss. And he just speaks about the meaningless nature of William's death. This is where we get kind of a little bit serious for a second, is that this is why, a kind of a reminder again, why Lower Decks balances comedy and seriousness quite well. Because in this farcical situation where we're on holodecks and we're off in the future and you're playing different characters, you have a gentle reminder reality is sometimes very difficult to deal with because there isn't always a reason for everything. for everything that happens. Although this episode is probably written quite a while ago, that I think is a fairly timeless message. The fact that there maybe isn't a reason to these things happening, and that can be very, very affecting. It sometimes can be quite difficult to help someone when they're realizing this. It's kind of a process you need to go through, and you see that in Boimler's character in this episode. All Mariner can really do is basically be his shoulder for the time that we spend on this story. Now we start to get echoes of Star Trek V here when, the best new sidekick ever, Knick-Knack, who I just think is great. What are you standing around for? Do you not know a jailbreak when you see one? And so they get out and then they get to the bridge and Mariner turns to Knick-Knack and says, well, wait, you see, this is where we're going to get some real speech. And Boimler walks in and he punches the guy, absolutely downs him. And Mariner turns to Knick-Knack and says, or no, we're just going to do the Kirk thing. Tendi and Rutherford and Freeman, Shax, Ransom and Ta'ana's holograms have arrived at the birth of the Federation. So we get some lovely visual callbacks and we're being really reminded of these are the voyages here, which is, no, but you gotta warn someone before you're just gonna drop a little bit of these are the voyages into an episode, okay? So they're there watching the birth of the Federation and, they take out a Romulan, but then the Romulan turns around, pulls out their disruptor. Rutherford is there trying to disarm a bomb and he's humming away to the Choo Choo song and Tendy's getting wound up and wound up and wound up and it takes so long that the Romulan has time to aim the disruptor and fire. But with feline reflexes, Ta'ana dives in the way, taking the full blast of the phaser of the disruptor. Tendi says, you're going to be okay, and Ta'ana just goes, don't bullshit a bullshitter, before she vaporizes. And it's oddly moving, which is why I could understand Tendy's frustration so much when Rutherford couldn't give less of a crap. Because he turns around and says, does it sound like burnt Romulan here or what? And she's just like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And Rutherford's just like, what are you talking about? This is why no one takes me seriously, and no one would take me seriously as a captain. And that's it. She drops the bombshell. She wants to be a captain. Rutherford goes, do you want to be a captain? And she goes, yeah. That's the first time I've said it out loud. And he's like, I would support the crap out of you as a captain. Captain, what would you like to do? I can understand the frustration with him because he's like, it looks like he's disrespecting her so much for the whole episode. But of course, he isn't because he doesn't realize. He is sitting there enjoying his holodeck time off. She is doing a trial run for being a captain. And once they understand each other, Rutherford, the good friend that he is, says, oh, of course. Well, you're my captain. Simple as. Tendi then activates the chronogami and she says, we'll do as the Melpinar does. I just have a point. I looked on it, I could not find what that was a reference to. So is that perhaps a dropped hint for later on in the season? Or if anyone out there went, oh, it's it. If you could let me know in the comments, because I'm afraid nothing turned up for me for this one. They use it to go back in time to the battle between that Valdor warbird and the Cerritos. This time, however, the Romulans get what they think is the chronogami, and those triplet sisters piloting the Romulan warbird, they're like, ha ha, Cerritos, you're totally screwed, ha ha ha, we're gonna activate our bomb now. To which Tendi goes, bomb's on your ship, not on ours. She holds up the chronogami, they open the box, it's a bomb, boom goes the Valdor. Boimler and Mariner have made it to the third moon of Shantori, which is effectively Shakari. Because they go down and then, suddenly this rock god slash monster slash Val from the apple comes up out of the ground and Boimler, he kind of jumps forward, the rock god says, what wisdom do you seek? And Boimler goes, what is the meaning of life? And the rock monster god goes, the meaning of life is to live a life worth meaning and full of purpose. Parrots off these inspirational quotes, and Boimler is having none of it because from the holodeck's point of view, in fairness, it wasn't programmed for any of this. Remember, we're still in a holodeck program here. So Boimler just goes, what? And he runs forward and starts punching the god, and the god goes, oh, stop that. And he gets inside the god, and it turns out to be very, very warm in here. It looks like we're gonna get a big massive reveal, and he kind of like, oh, I see it, I see. Kittia, okay, yeah, wipes it away, and it's kind of a V'ger moment, and it's the Wright brothers plane. And as he says, that makes no sense as a reveal. And he's going, this is ridiculous. And he punches everything, and he ends up passing out, and he kind of fades, and he arrives at a cabin up. He walks up to the mailbox, and he sees Kirk. And I start to feel a little bit of a heart flutter here, because I'm thinking, well, hang on, we've covered nearly every movie in the original series up to this point, and there's a barn. And in that barn, there is a horse who's being brushed down. And understandably, Boimler goes, Captain Kirk? Captain Hikaru Sulu, played once again by George Takei, stands and turns to Boimler, and I just had chills run through my whole body as I was saying this. Obviously this is an up, and what follows is a beautiful discussion as Boimler talks about, you know, his feeling of loss. Sulu turns around and says, "I've lost many friends, some heroically, some tragically. The randomness of death reflects the unexpected joys of life." This scene is obviously our Latinum up, and that hit home. That really did, because this was probably written and recorded before the passing of Nichelle Nichols. But when you think about it, this is not simply Captain Sulu speaking about his crewmates. This is George Takei talking about, you know, his friends and colleagues from the 1960s, because as it stands, George Takei, Walter Koenig, and William Shatner are the last surviving members of the original series crew. We were all very affected by this, watching this scene. It is a beautiful sentiment while also being absolutely heartbreaking. The scene ends with Boimler doing, as we always knew he would, this fanboying, you know, kind of, oh, let me ask you about what was it like to work with Spock? What was it like to work with Uhura? What was it like pressing the crystal buttons on the bridge of the Enterprise? And Sulu just, I never saw this way, I never saw any of this coming, but the way he ends the scene, "Horsey will bite you now." And the Horsey bites him, and he wakes up, and it's to Anna there with the hyperspray. So that was obviously our Latinum up, but we have, in fact, for this scene, it has merited something more. So, once per season, we will give out what we call a Dilithium up. And it is the greatest moment in the entire season. I think they would be hard pressed to be that this is our Dilithium up for Lower Decks season 3. And now, one thing that the Dilithium up can do, that the Latinum up can't, is the Dilithium up can undo a down. Now, fair warning everyone, because the Dilithium up can undo a down, one can only assume that the inverse of this rule stands true as well. Back aboard the Cerritos, Boimler wakes up in the sickbay, you know, with Tana reminding him, like, you know, for God's sake, hydrate when you're in there, you overheated, and, you know, everyone is there discussing the lessons they learned, and, you know, it's a soft moment, and Tana just goes, "Will you get the hell out of here, I need the bed. Stevens is leaned against the warp core." And then they wheel him in, and he's like, second time today! What will that man do to get Ransom to notice him? So they're walking along, and they all talk about the fact, like, at least it didn't end on a cliffhanger ending. A Defiant class ship decloaks, and on it we see a funeral torpedo, which is then activated, and William Boimler sits up because he's just been recruited into Section 31. And he's handed his new comm badge, and he goes, "For a secret organization, why do we have our special identifying insignia? Wouldn't that just be silly?" And the person just goes, "You could stay dead." And he's like, "Here's my new badge, thanks very much." The episode ends with the reveal of an evil Boimler. My friends, if you'd be so kind, come and join me at Cetacean Observations. Righto, I'm going to have to go through this one quickly. So, we got a Valdor-class warbird. We have a Kzinti, of course, Romulan uniform with that Aztecing. That was a kind of adaptation from TNG through into DS9. We have Romulan TNG Disruptor and Disruptor Rifle. Sovereign-class ship. We have the musical cues from Crisis Point, which came before. Now, we also have what seems to be, yes, a Luna class on the Master Systems display. We then have a reference to Ractagino. We have Tellarite deadlifts, which are apparently being tried by Commander Ransom. Mariner mentions at one point, I hope this isn't another mission to go back and assassinate Kennedy. Now, this one is actually a bit of a deep cut. In between what would become the motion picture and the Wrath of Khan, Gene Roddenberry had pitched an idea which he had called Star Trek 3, even though it would have been the second film, that would have seen Kirk go back and meet Kennedy before and try and stop the assassination, that then causing the Federation to never be created, or the Klingons were going to go back. It's all a bit all over the place, but there was actually a movie idea. Now, this is before the studio went, TMP did not make us a lot of money, we're going to get somebody else to do Wrath of Khan. So, very deep cut there. Now, we have, of course, the Arch in the holodeck as well, and the reference to the Kelvin timeline, which we absolutely love. Motion picture style credits. We have the Europa facility, which of course is Regular 1, refitted. Those lovely red light tubes. We have the Rathakan science uniforms. We have Rathakan regular one interior. Helena Gibson is clearly Carol Marcus. Weekend on Ryza, with the exact same opening from the Project Genesis pitch video, is used as top secret for this video here. We get the TOS style Constitution class along with the Galaxy class from the next generation. And of course the little dig going, oh wow, those graphics are mind-blowing. Hey, I know what you're shading there, Rutherford. You're shading the Genesis effect from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Bear in mind, that was the first CGI scene in any of entirely CGI scenes. So, you know, less of your sass. From the movie beginning to the movie ending, has those scratch burn marks, cigarette burns all over the screen to make you feel as if you're watching things on film, which I love it. Winger Binks Acting School. Couldn't find a reference. Please let me know in the comments below if you know what it is. Tadashore 9. Fred Tadashore plays Arshak, so he does. Let Manuki guide you, from, of course, the episode earlier this season. We're all holograms in a simulation. You called it, buddy. And of course, the koala smiles at us all. Now, Alien of the Week bullshit. I'm sorry, that is hilarious. It's not a specific Easter egg to any one thing, it's the entire style of Star Trek. Now, we have the grav cycles from the Kelvin universe. We also then have Tendy's backflipping over the Romulan thing. This is what I said to another cinematic universe. That reminds me strongly of Rey Skywalker's, backflip over the TIE fighter or the TIE interceptor on the desert planet of Pasana in The Rise of Skywalker. I just thought that was quite neat. Starfleet Academic Research Center, Monster Maroons. Now, the planets that are tattooed onto this bloke's skin, we got Karzil, Beta Z, Earth, Mercury, Talos, Artemis, Alpha 7, Kelva. Anywho, we have, of course, the reference to William Boimler, the transporter clone, who is himself, the storyline is a reference to Generations, where Picard loses his brother and his nephew to a house fire because apparently no one in France thought to install fire repellent systems, which are bloody standard in the 24th century. They talk about a Neurazine gas leak, and of course, we have Ransom's besties from Citation Ops. You've got the bartender Honus, you've got Matt the Whale as well, and of course, Nurse Westlake, Chris Westlake, why not? Now, Wrath of Khan becomes Voyage home with the punks. Mariner and Boimler are aboard a freighter. It's actually the Arcos, which is from the TNG episode Legacy. That's the actual photo from the episode. It's actually thanks to the Eaglemoss Starships collection that we really know what this looks like in close up. Final Frontier Jailbreak, we can do the Kirk thing. Founding of the Federation, they're all in Enterprise era jumpsuits. Nemesis Thaleron emitter for the bomb. We get a reference to the Choo Choo Band. Now, we also then get down to Romulan triplets, which are, in my opinion, clearly a reference to the Juros sisters. We then have Shatner's rock monsters from Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, the deleted version that never actually made it through. The Kitty-Ya kind of wiping the dust away, that's very like the V'ger reveal from the motion picture. Should have stayed a raisin farmer and married Leanne. Sure, listen, we all would have loved to marry Leanne Boimler. Then of course there's the cabin from Star Trek Generations, reference to Kirk. Sulu. They actually do a joke on the oh my because it's the first words he says, but they don't do the joke. They don't do the oh my, they do oh my. And it's because we all knew he was going to say it, and I like that they did it this way. Reference to the Nexus, reference to Idaho. Brad, I've lost many friends. We have Spock, Uhura, Crystal Buttons on the Enterprise, practice daily with the sword. We then have a Defiant class ship, which, according to our good friend James Amy, is a deep cut to the Shatnerverse series of novels with a Section 31 owned Defiant class ship. Thank you very much, James, for that one. Funeral Torpedo, Spock, Section 31 comm badge, Evil Boimler. Why does every single transporter clone have to become evil? Thank you so much for joining us. What a special episode this was. It was amazing. Yeah, it deserves the score. We really, really appreciate just George Takei coming back and reprising the role. But what did you think of the episode? Let us know in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Catch us over on Twitter at Trek Culture. Catch us on Instagram at Trek Culture YT. YT is in YouTube. So please catch us over there. You can catch myself at Sean Ferrick on Twitter, at Sean.Ferrick88 on Instagram, and you can catch Chris at EditChrisEdit on Twitter as well. Folks, thank you so much as always for following along. We hope you enjoyed this. Yeah, we loved it. We loved it. Did we play that close to the chest? Everyone have a great time till I see you again. Make sure that you live long and prosper. Our friends in Ukraine, please stay strong. Things are scary at the moment. Know that our support is with you. And our friends in Iran as well. Your bravery is incredible. Thank you so much to everyone. Have a great weekend. make it so.